welcome back to In the Rearview Mirror, a supernatural retrospective. I'm Graham.
I'm Sierra.
We're here to deliver you that quality content on every supernatural episode. How many episodes here?
About 327 of them.
Yeah, there are. We watched 4 more episodes of season 1.
We did.
We got
Scarecrow, Faith, Route 666, and Nightmare.
all great episodes.
Quality. Well, three out of 4.
So to start off, episode 11, Scarecrow. Again, it's just kind of a monster one, but we are sprinkled in some stuff. So the past episode that we watched before was Asylum, and at the end of that episode, we get a phone call, and I believe we know it's John Winchester.
Yeah, Sam sits up. He's dead. And we're all like, Dad.
Yeah, and so that's how Scarecrow starts off with. We hear John talking to Sam and Dean, and then they want him to go to Indiana for a case.
John trying to send him there to do another case.
And then, Sam and Dean end up going to this so-called case, but Sam ends up leaving in the middle of it. Why I bring this up is because we meet a very important character, Meg.
Meg, yes.
And I kind of forgot she came in early. I knew she came in early, but I guess I just didn't remember she came in this specific episode.
You were just like, Meg already? Sort of thing.
So she's pretty important to this episode.
Yeah.
Like, the reason why you
I'd
might
say
want to
so.
see this episode is, like, she
You gotta know who Meg is.
Yeah, and kind of just know more things on it.
You need to not miss.
This is kind of where it starts. These episodes start of where, like, it's kind of a filler. There's not a lot going on.
We're getting more into the plot-heavy episodes of this season. I mean, we are in 11 right now, so we're past the mid-season finale. So we're starting to get going here.
So, yeah, and they're just sprinkling in little plot points here and there that you kind of need to know.
They're expanding the supernatural universe little by little. Every episode we get something a little new.
Yeah, continuing on, even like Faith. So the Faith was the episode where in the beginning, Sam and Dean are on a hunt, just some ghost or whatever, and Dean
Rawhead.
Was that what it was called?
Yeah, Rawhead, which they I don't know they ever really bring. They've mentioned.
I don't think
They don't
mentioned
hunt
that
one ever
again.
I don't believe. I know that they mention them. I think even 15 they mention. I'm like, what the hell's a rawhead? And when did you hunt one?
My God.
They hunt everything under the sun, but I don't remember them ever having to actually deal with a rawhead.
I've never heard that term in my entire life in
you
all
have.
the years of watching Supernatural.
But it's Sam just saying stuff offhandedly. I think
That's really,
or we're
really,
gonna get into season like 13 or something, and he'll be like, "Oh, there's the rawhead episode."
That's really, really, really funny. No, so yeah, I guess they're fighting this rawhead, and Dean gets really hurt, and so he ends up having a heart attack or something. He damages his heart. But the biggest thing about this episode, so Dean's hurt, and we're like, oh great.
Yeah, it's not looking optimal.
They go to a faith healer, and this episode we're introduced into the Reaper. We meet a Reaper, or Death, as they thought it was Death, but it's like the Grim Reaper, but there's lots of them.
Yeah, they're the people who reap the souls. Death doesn't do that personally. Death, that would be a lot of people for one deity to go and handle.
Continuing on, we have Route 666, another just ghost episode. That one was a filler. There wasn't a lot. There was some character building and stuff like that, but really it was just about a ghost in a truck that was really racist and wanted to destroy a very nice black family. That was it.
He wanted his revenge.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of not funny, but watching this now in 2020, I think we were like, wow.
Another episode that hits different.
Yeah. Really. I was like,
15 years later.
To be fair, the whole time I did not remember anything about this episode other than it was a dumb, like, redneck truck running people off the road. Then when I was watching this, and I was like, oh, it's a little different now. Like,
oh boy, there are a lot of themes here.
It's like, oh, okay.
Speaking of racism.
Well, I guess we're just going to do that.
Maybe we will. I don't know. Well, so this episode was actually written by a pair that stays with the show until season 15. Their names are Brad Buckner and Eugenie Ross Lemming. Now, these two people are famous in the fandom for writing the absolute worst episode. They're either racist, sexist, homophobic, or a combination of all three. They're not good. And they always bring up little tidbits of lore canon we've never heard of before to get these boys out of those situations, and it's always terrible.
Yeah.
And they never bring this stuff up again.
Yes.
It's just the one episode.
They don't really like to follow canon.
They sure don't. No. They sure don't. They're canon? Who is that?
Yeah, but they wrote Route 666, which I do find it funny that it was like the real, like one of the first really, I guess, like intense episodes about real life things.
Real problems.
Yeah.
Right. Not
that,
how
like,
to...
I don't think they ever do this again, like with anything. Like, I was just kind of like, wow. Like, I remember even Dean, they were talking to the mom who was married to the black man, and they said, like, why didn't you tell anyone this? And she's like, this was 40 years ago.
That
like,
was really funny.
He would have been killed. Like, and then Dean's like, oh.
Dean immediately was like, that was stupid, you're right.
Yeah, like, oh. And I was like, yeah, like, this is real. Like,
he was like, that's stupid. Why didn't she's... Are you serious, son? 40 years ago.
In Mississippi.
And I know, that's what I'm saying. In Mississippi, too. It's no good.
Yeah, so we're just like, oh, okay. Going on to Nightmare. So, Nightmare. I definitely forgot what this episode was. And then we got into it, and I was like, oh my god, it's really like this episode.
You did say that, you're like, this happens? I'm like, yeah.
Well, because I was like, oh, like it just came flooding back to me, because this is the first episode that really has to do with the plot, that really has to do with the show. Like, this is the show. Like, this is all the stuff that, like, that really meat that, like, of everything, I would say.
This brings in problems that will affect the boys throughout. It's not like, oh, you got a werewolf hunt. No. This is stuff that is going to be continuing on through.
And it doesn't, it might not even seem, because at the time, I think I forgot all this stuff. And at the time, you know, I was like, oh, this doesn't have to do anything. But watching back, I'm like, oh my lord, like, this has to do with everything. Like,
Kripke planting them seeds.
Yeah. Deep, which is really nice. Like, we get, Sam starts having visions during the day. He starts having all these, like, hard headaches because of the visions. Like, this is that seed that's being implanted, like, going forward now, we're gonna have this. So anyway, but for Nightmare, it's about the character Max. He also has these psychic abilities, kind of like Sam. He's a telekinetic.
Yeah, I think telekinetic. He has the ability of telekinesis.
Yeah, so like moving stuff and stuff like that. But what is found out is that Max's mom was also killed in his nursery when he was 6 months old, right, or something?
They don't say that, but yeah.
Okay,
but
so whatever that was, he just got his powers 6 months ago, like Sam, or his powers awoke 6 months ago, like Sam, and it just seems that these two people are connected, and Sam is wondering why he's having visions about Max, because all this is going on, but unfortunately, Max had such a rough life growing up with his dad and stepmom and his uncle that he is now using his powers for evil, and they have to take care of this before he kills his stepmom, because he had already killed his uncle and dad.
He did, yeah.
The other thing that's added in this episode is that where Sam just had visions, his power is growing. We see a scene where he's able to get out of the closet that has like this giant bookshelf against it. So he is starting to grow those telekinetic powers like Max. And so that just kind of goes to show that.
Right. He's got visions, and he's somehow able to tap into the telekinesis ability. So that's interesting.
So it's really interesting to start planting those seeds. And now I think Sam and Dean now know that Mary and Jess's death were not by accident. This is a much bigger plan, because stuff is happening that is just could not be a coincidence.
Well, if we think back to John's phone call in Scarecrow, where he's explaining the demon to the boys, and you got to stay away. This is bigger. This is bigger. It's dangerous. I can't have you boys here. You got to be safe, and do your job elsewhere. Jumping into Nightmare, you understand the layers apparently that this has, that we think John has figured out. It's not just Mary who was killed in this way, but it was also Max's mom, and who knows how many other people. And Jess, how many other people have been murdered.
And apparently
by this one entity.
Yeah, but this demon now that we know, that's just kind of like what's going on? Why are they wreaking havoc? Why did they have this 10-year plan that is happening, and then John just is not telling them? And in that moment too, I was curious to know what does John know?
Right.
What does he know?
What's the extent of John's knowledge at this
Because we slowly
point?
figure it out, but I'm curious, like, me thinking now at this point, like, what does he know?
Right.
Because, yeah, like you said, he really did not. He told the boys, like, you need to stay away.
Right.
We need to not be in contact because people are watching.
Right. He's like, don't talk to me. I don't want to have contact with you boys. You go off. You do the cases I tell you to do. That's it.
And that's when, with Meg, I don't even think we talked about that.
Not in depth, but with Meg, yeah.
Yeah, that people are everywhere, and we find out Meg is with Sam, but then we find Meg is just kind of this weird person that we don't know. We don't know who she is or what she is.
A psychopath,
yeah,
at the least.
Murdering people and making telephone calls in pools of blood.
It's not a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Pretty odd.
So that is very strange.
And the conversation she has with supposedly her father.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and I think this also adds another level to the amount of information we as the viewers don't yet have.
Yeah.
Because she's asking, I mean, I could have killed Sam and Dean easily, no problem. Why not?
And
why didn't you want me to kill them? And then she gets an explanation which we as the viewers don't hear. She says, yes, of course, Father.
I understand.
Of course.
I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is even bigger than we thought before. There's layers on layers on this. And like, what killed Mary? How? Why? What is the plan for these boys? There's apparently a plan set in place for them, but what is it? Who made it?
Mm-hmm.
What do they want from them? What do they want them to do? What do they want to happen? Well, I was going to say, is this plan good or bad? But obviously, it's not a good plan if the person's being contacted via blood. So that's just a rule of thumb in Supernatural. If you have to contact an entity or someone via blood, it's usually not a good one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's back up. Let's take this a little one step at a time thing. So let's just look at these episodes from a base perspective. Were they scary? Because all season 1 are kind of scary, but now we're getting to plot episodes where they're not really scary anymore.
Right. So I think that Scarecrow and Route 66, those were decently frightening.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say those, but I feel that Faith and Nightmare were more drama oriented. I don't think they were exactly scary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course they have the supernatural elements that all episodes of Supernatural will have.
Oh yeah, like in Scarecrow, when they're running through the woods
Mm-hmm.
and like they're tripping and can't get up and like there's something following them in the dark, those classic horror tropes where they're the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, their cell phone service doesn't work, they're running in the middle of the woods, they're tripping over themselves,
they left their car,
like, oh great, oh of course, makes sense. To be fair though, I think I even said this to you, that when we put on Scarecrow, I remember it being very scary.
I remember it being decently scary.
And then I watched it and I was like, I mean, it's creepy. Don't get me wrong, but
but we also weren't in a basement
in the dark.
watching this. So.
I mean, I'm still in the basement, but I'm not in the dark anymore.
I had a light on this time.
I had a light on this time.
I was smart. I knew.
Yeah, so that wasn't that bad. Route 666, it's just a car, I guess, coming from
It's creepy.
It's creepy. I guess for other places maybe who don't drive as much, you're like, yeah, whatever. But us from the D, I think after we watched that episode.
Well, I had to drive home. And so I'm driving home. And I swear to God, there's a truck behind me with like 6 headlights on, blinding me. And I'm like, this is it. This is how I die. I don't know why, but this is it for me.
Yeah, so driving a lot more, I guess it's more like frightening to be like, oh, like I guess getting in a car accident is like terrifying and real in the sense of that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. But I think these were more dramatic episodes, like Dean dying and Sam needs to save his brother.
Sam's got to save his brother.
Yeah, and he's going to do it anyway, and they're going to fight about it, and
hell yeah.
They got to get all that other stuff going.
They got to fight about it.
And then even with this brings up more drama between the boys and kind of a little bit more headbutting between the boys because Sam is like, I'm having these visions. That's a little weird. And Dean's like, nah, don't worry about it.
Dean's like, don't worry about it.
Sweeping it under the rug. And then we meet Max. And then Sam is kind of like, what if I turn into Max?
There's really no... At this point, Dean can't be like, you're fine. But he still kind of tries
I think he's
to.
just kind of like, I just don't know what to do with you right now.
He's trying to protect Sam in a way of being like, we'll keep an eye. It's a little concerning, but you're fine, buddy. It's going to be fine.
I think
he had a completely different upbringing. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
I think it's also the stress of past episodes, too, that are coming up because Sam is really, like, not happy about John Winchester.
Oh, sure.
As Dean's trying to, keep the peace.
Right.
So I think he's like, oh, well, we're already kind of on edge because we don't see eye to eye already.
Right, as we saw with that phone call where Sam's like, Dad, what are you talking about? Tell us where you are. Come meet us. He's trying to get John to, meet up with him. And then, Dean eventually gets the phone from him. It's just like, names? Yes, sir. Writes them all down, like a good little soldier. And neither of them liked how the other handled that.
And then even though I know Route 666 was like just a whatever filler episode, but we get some drama between this Dean and Cassie that apparently, he seemed to be in love with her, but then he couldn't do it because, his family had to go off on the road and she didn't believe him. And so just getting that tension of Dean, wanting to settle down and couldn't.
Right.
Okay, so let's add a little bit more layers. Let's talk about the few things about we kind of keep in the supernatural lore. So in Faith, Dean gets really hurt. And this is the real start of, I think, where we see that the boys cheat death a lot.
On occasion, they have been known to cheat death.
They cheat death sometimes, and I think that just kind of goes to show that not even in Faith, but like we see in Nightmare where Max, in Sam's vision, Max shoots Dean and he dies, which very surprised me. I was very concerned why we saw that. It honestly really.
Oh yeah, you're like, what's going on? I'm like,
I was very confused.
I'm waiting for you to catch up. This is a vision.
But we do get our second blood cannon of the season.
We do, yes. It's not the usual blood cannon, less gutsy. But
there is a but either way, yes. So they are cheating death left and right. They're gonna continue to cheat death throughout the rest of the seasons, and
we'll see him do it. A couple times. Different ways, different means. Very. I'm thinking of a great episode that's going to be coming up in a few seasons. Oof. Wonderful.
And then they kind of stick with their, their roots of they don't want the humans to die. They got to kill all the monsters and leave all the humans. This is touched upon. There are some black and white and gray areas. Do they ever really make it black and white? No.
Well, Dean sees in more black and white than Sam does.
Yeah, but I think both of them at the end, they'll slowly work out.
Yeah, but I mean, once we go through these seasons, they have a different. Both the boys have a different perspective about the black, white, and gray areas of their job and what they do.
Can I say the one thing that I love that they put in here too? That I just realized that.
Sure.
I think this is the boys' motto is God save the people doing God's work.
That was pretty funny.
Like, these people think they're trying to help and they're just
boy
not,
oh boy,
like,
they're messing it up.
Yeah, seriously. I do like though. Well, no, I don't like it, but I don't like that we never really talk about Cassie ever again either. She seemed very influential in Dean's life, like Jess was to Sam. And spoiler alert, she's never mentioned ever again. If she is, she's like maybe mentioned by name.
Huh.
But I don't think she was ever mentioned again.
Yeah, I don't think they bring Cassie up again.
Which I think is really weird because Jess is like, a pivotal point of Sam's everything.
They still mention Jess, I think, in like 15. Like they've still mentioned her.
Yeah.
We don't forget about Jess.
No,
but
no
we
one
forget
does.
about Cassie.
We forget about Cassie, yeah.
Well, I mean, are you surprised, Buck Lemming episode? Who remembers any of that? So
I don't know. And we get a few other things like
do tell.
For Route 666, they burned the body, but the ghost truck still came back. So Dean was like, "You have to burn the object now." So we kind of learned that ghosts can haunt or be attached to objects instead of bodies,
like the Hook Man.
Yep. Definitely forgot about that.
Yep, like the Hook Man because it was the hook, and they had to.
Yep, and then, but they did introduce that ghosts couldn't walk on holy ground or holy area.
The consecrated.
Yeah. The consecrated ground, that was it. Yeah. I do find it funny because I feel like they do mention that here and there, but like not enough to where it would be helpful.
On occasion, but I feel like the bigger, badder things they come up against, that's not, to be fair, a solution for them.
They don't go into churches a lot, so
they're occasionally in churches.
Yeah, but I feel like,
they're not really around sacred, consecrated ground.
No.
Often.
No. Last thing I thought that was funny was the weird laser camera thing in Nightmare.
Yeah, the infrared.
Yeah. He gave it a name.
The infrared
thermal scanner. Yeah, it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I was like, Dean, why are you using this? Just use an EMF.
The one time we see it.
The one time.
Listen, let Dean be innovative. I am so proud of Dean and him building all this stuff. He's so smart. I'm proud of you. Killing it. Trying to be a real ghost hunter here. Okay. Not that he's not a real ghost hunter.
No.
He's the realest ghost hunter.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to our monsters.
Ooh, buddy.
So for these episodes, there wasn't a lot of monsters per se, because like we said, a lot of them were...
There weren't a lot of supernatural monsters.
Well, yeah, we're going to have this argument. So,
we are.
Starting off, for Scarecrow, it was as I put it, the fugly Jeepers Creepers looking Scarecrow.
Yeah, Jeepers Creepers was the vibe of that episode.
It was so creepy. That's all I could think of. And it made, like, I guess, because, you know, he dresses up as the Scarecrow and is just, like, watching people sometimes. And that's just what he looked like.
Didn't like those movies.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. So I was just like, ugh, gross. But in the episode, we learned that it's a pagan god. And I don't remember if they said, like, that was the god or, like, the god was, like, taking control of the Scarecrow.
Right.
I think they said it was taking control of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, I think the spirit controls...
But, you know, pagan god. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's fun. Like,
it's fun. I do like they bring in other gods and deities. I love the other deity episodes. I love those. They're so much fun.
So, like, this one was cool to be like, oh, it's the god. And, you know, they make human sacrifices to this god. And they don't... They keep away the... bad crops and famine and whatnot. And...
Do you remember the short story by Shirley Jackson, I believe, The Lottery?
No.
Oh, you don't? We read this in school. Okay. So they throw every year you stone someone to death.
Oh,
remember
vaguely, yes.
So this gave me the lottery vibes because, I mean, every year they got to sacrifice some people that roll into town unsuspecting. And no one questions it. Everyone's just like, well, I mean, we gotta eat, so you gotta die. Sorry.
But yeah, I thought the Scarecrow was pretty scary. Again, I bring up Jeepers Creepers. It wore the skin of the dead. And I was like, gross. I hate it.
Yeah. That was...
Get a weird hook. Hate it.
Mm-hmm.
You're dressed up in some creepy cowboy. Hate it.
Hate it. Everything about you.
Hate it. Yeah, did not like it. Did not. Only worked at night on a time thing. Hate it.
The apple trees.
I'm sorry. Was this Jeepers Creepers though? Like, this literally was it. Like, this literally is the whole.
I don't remember. I just remember
premise.
I just remember Justin Long was in it, and there was a school bus, and then.
That's the second one.
Yeah, and I only watched like half of that, and
that's unfortunate. I mean,
it's not because it was terrifying
really
and scary because I watched it in my youth when I shouldn't have.
Yeah. Our next quote-unquote monster was the Reaper. You're introduced to our first Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
So the Grim Reaper, but there's more of them. So we see this spooky Reaper.
Spooky skin. Very wrinkly.
Yeah, he's like really old, and like Dean, like, yeah, he was in a suit, and Sam's like, in a suit? Dean's like, what'd you expect, him, a cloak? Like,
I mean, if I were a Reaper, I would have rocked the cloak look, but, you know, that's just me.
It's this creepy guy that, like, just doesn't move. We don't have a lot of lore behind it, but, like, you can kind of understand that, you know, he's coming to take you to die.
Mm-hmm. He comes to reap your soul, and you're the only one who can see him at the time of the reaping.
Yes, I liked that, too, because that makes sense. Like, who else would see this Reaper coming for you unless, you know, you're seeing death himself.
Right.
So, and then we have our ghost truck thing. It's very unique. I'll give it to that. I've never heard of a ghost that is a truck, or a truck that's a ghost. I don't actually think we have seen a lot of possessed objects per se, like a car, which I think is kind of cool.
Or the object that could do harm.
Yeah.
If it had sort of possessed that object.
That object.
Sure,
that's
okay,
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like some office where like the copier's possessed and it's just
hey, I don't want a paper cut on my neck, okay?
Yeah, actually. Oh wait, maybe we do see that. That kind of reminds me of an episode. No, that wasn't possessed though. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
Okay. I don't know what episode you're talking about, so that's fine.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the ghost possession or anything, so it doesn't even matter. Yeah, so like there was nothing really new. Like I said, they burned the body, but the ghost was still attached to the truck, so, you know, it was interesting, I guess.
Similar to Hookman.
Yeah, but they couldn't get rid of that burnt truck.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Lastly, for Nightmare, there wasn't a quote-unquote monster for Nightmare. You could say that the antagonist is Max because he's killing these people. He's the reason why they're dead.
He's the one who holds Dean at gunpoint.
So,
And Sam,
in what Sierra said, not a supernatural monster, but for that episode, he's the bad guy. He's the monster for this.
Yep.
And he does have all these supernatural abilities, so I guess at that point, is he the supernatural monster then?
No, in my opinion, he is not a supernatural monster. That would make Sam a supernatural monster since he's got these abilities.
Wow.
Well, you leave my boy Sam alone.
We'll get into that.
He's good and wholesome. Well, in my opinion, here, I think this collection of episodes that we viewed, the theme of them seems to be that the monster isn't necessarily always a supernatural being. Sometimes it's the people using these supernatural monsters or abilities to harm other people. So we start to see this idea of the real monsters are people, right? And so it's really kind of the beginning of the boys' struggle with their policy of we don't kill humans, and the fact that some people are basically just they're monsters, which is not a theme that goes away anytime soon. So we really start to build on it. I think it really starts with this collection of episodes here.
Well, and especially because, which we'll get into a little bit, is that Sam is thinking he might be turning into said monster.
He's very worried.
So it is really hard for these boys to, like we said, see in black and white, because now there is this grayscale. That
black and white would mean, Max is the monster, you kill Max, no problem. But what about Sam? Would you have to just kill Sam then?
And Sam
because of his abilities?
Did try to hurt him, which is quite sad. But Sam does do a good job about trying to help Max, I think, the best he could. But unfortunately, Max just had a very, very poor childhood and upbringing.
I mean, damage was done.
Yeah.
There really was nothing Sam, without some sort of advanced psychology degree, could really say to maybe even sort of help Max.
Yeah, maybe he was trying to hope that maybe Max could get some closure, that his, obviously his mom's death wasn't his fault, even though I think he knew that, but psychological damage runs deep in children, so it's hard to not think that. And then I think he was hoping that look, the stepmom, she didn't physically hurt you. I know she did nothing, and doing nothing half the time is doing something, because nothing is something most cases.
All three of those people had an enormous amount of blame put on them, but it was pretty much all deserved.
Yeah. So I think that Sam was really trying to be like, just let her go, just let her leave. Like, she didn't do that, so you don't need to be in fear anymore.
Your main two antagonizers are gone. You can leave her alone. She's obviously not going to do anything because she did nothing her entire life. So you should be fine.
Yeah, she's also terrified of you now.
I mean, I would be too.
Yeah. But yeah, I believe that conversation with Max really impacts Sam because, he says he realizes that their life could have been really messed up if John went down a bad path. Because remember, back in the mechanic in that one episode with Home,
John was kind of a hothead.
Yeah, and he drank a lot. I think they said that. And I'm pretty sure Dean said, he drank a lot. And, in the pilot, we see Sam's just like, he's not a bender. He's just a
sure,
drinking.
yeah. So John's drunk, sure.
Yeah, so their childhood, as rough as it already was, it could have been 10 times worse.
At least John didn't physically beat them.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, at the end of Nightmare there, Sam's saying, so glad we didn't grow up like, Max did. So glad, Dad went down like a different path. And the look that Dean gives him is just like, I mean, yeah, but he still wasn't great. I mean, we more verbally, I think, if anything, would have abusive. And I think that the look that Dean gives him is really saying that, like, yeah, to you, Sam, but I'm the one who got the brunt of it. Because Dean would always protect Sam. That's his number one. Protect Sam. He brought him out of that house. He's keeping him away from danger his whole life. It's, I'm sure that was beaten into him, not literally, by John, over and over and over again. Take care of Sammy. Take care of your brother. So, I mean, if anything, he would probably, either be like, hey, Sam, go, whatever, and then so John could just berate him, Dean, instead of Sam.
What's really interesting? The first line John Winchester ever says is, take your brother outside, Dean.
That's true. You're right. First thing he says to Dean is, take your brother outside. Go. And, yeah, he does that.
Wow.
For,
I just thought
for
about
forever.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
From everything.
Mm-hmm. And we really don't get a lot of John's character. Like, I think we've seen him, what 3 times? He's mentioned a little bit more.
A couple of times. That's
Like,
it.
yeah, we got a phone call, like, that's it. But, like, and I guess in the sense, like, he's the first couple seconds when he's on the phone with Sam, he kind of cares. He's like, yeah, I'm all right. Like, yeah, I'm finding this thing.
Mm-hmm.
He seems sorry that, like, he knew that Jess died.
We don't doubt that John loves Sam and Dean. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But love makes you stupid.
Which I found funny going back to, I don't think anyone told John that Jess died. So he found out, like,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
And you know what? I bet it was in the papers. This is kind of a tangent because I
This
said
bitch
that.
doing some digging. He
Well,
keeping
yeah.
tabs.
So going back to when he called, he's
damn.
talking on the phone to them, right? And he's like, go to the Scarecrow in Indiana.
Unless Sam had left him a message in his
I doubt
phone,
that he
but
did.
that'd be the only
Doubt
way
that he did.
because they hadn't talked to him, so there's no other way.
Because how John said it was something around the lines of like, I heard about Jess and I'm sorry. This wasn't like Dean told me or like I'm sorry.
Right.
It was like I heard about it or like I'm sorry what happened or something like that. So yeah, I think that John, and we did bring up that when like I said, he's sending them to Indiana for the Scarecrow route, when he's looking for this demon that killed Mary and also Jessica, he's finding other people dying because he's looking for clues for this demon and trying to put pieces together. And I think he's seeing like these weird cases pop up, and that's why we're getting coordinates sent to Sam and Dean. So John is like, I'm gonna keep you boys out of the way because he does say
Keeping
on his
them
phone,
busy.
he said this on the phone call, like, I can't tell you what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You need to stay away because people are watching. So I'm gonna keep my boys busy, and I'm gonna send them, and they're gonna hunt these other things that I can't do because people are dying.
Right.
And it kind of works out. And in that moment, I was like, oh boy. So I bet maybe he did find Jess because, again, it's a weird thing. Woman burned on a ceiling or there was a fire. And then you find out, like, oh, Sam, he went to Stanford. What's the coincidence in that?
Right. And yeah, he's keeping the boys busy, saving people, hunting things, the family business.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what they do.
And then that goes back to the whole, this is much bigger than anyone, I think, seems to see because John is like,
Oh boy.
I can't tell you. We can't be talking.
John's not giving them any information, not an inch. He's just like, shut up and go do my cases like I told you to.
Yeah.
It's too big for you boys. I'm sorry. You can't, it's too dangerous.
But I did find it, again, not funny, but funny.
Sure.
That was Scarecrow. But then, the episode later where Dean is dying, Sam calls him and he doesn't say anything. And then we don't even get like John called or anything. Sam was very upset saying, Dean is dying. I need your help. Or like, we need to figure out how to save Dean. And John said nothing.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And then maybe as an audience, we don't see John's like reaction or callback or whatever. But like, we don't know that John ever knew that Dean was hurt, which is
right. Yeah, we don't ever know if he knows that Dean had that heart problem. Because I didn't think about that. You're right. We don't know if he knew. And if he did know, he didn't say anything.
good parenting, John Winchester. So enough about all this. We need to talk about what really makes this show good. Sam and Dean Winchester,
The brothers.
the brothers. I don't believe last week we had a relationship status for them because I still think they're on the same page. That's what we said in the pilot.
Yeah, they're fine.
Now, however,
Well, they have their first big fight. These boys have many fights over the course of these seasons. Of course, they're brothers. If anyone's got a sibling, you fight with your sibling. It's what you do.
I can confirm this.
It's what I'm told. They have their nice big fight. Of course, this starts in the Impala. Some of their big blowouts happen in the Impala, So they have their first fight. And Sam decides he's not going to ride with Dean anymore. And Dean says, fine. You want to get out? Get out. You can walk. The boys decide that they should go their separate ways. Sam's like, fine, I'm going to get out. And Dean's like, fine with me, but you want to go, you go ahead, which makes Dean sad. He's a liar. He doesn't want Sam to leave him. But Sam goes. He hitchhikes.
So you're saying Dean has abandonment issues?
Oh, what an interesting point to
weird.
make. Wow.
Didn't see that coming.
Wow. Didn't see him being stubborn to keep up his persona, even though Sam obviously sees right through it, being brothers. I love their fights because we know they're going to find their way back to each other eventually. It's a real theme of the show here. And it's always funny because we're just waiting. We bide our time. We say, all right, how you boys getting back together later? Let's see how this plays out. See how long they can stay away. And then, of course, they don't. Well, of course not, because then Dean, isn't picking up his phone, and Sam's really worried. Sam's like, no, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. I gotta go. And he connects with Meg over his family, trying to turn him into something, he's not, he doesn't want to be. But at the end of the day, family's the most important thing. Another theme, overarching theme of this show. Family's the most important thing. You put family above all else. And so Sam, despite wanting to, be free and have his different life, he's trying to go find John, gonna disobey him, the bad son. But Dean's not picking up his phone. Dean was on a case. Dean's probably in trouble. Sam can't have that. Gotta go save his brother. Although in Faith, I do feel like they get a little closer once they're reunited, and then Dean has his accident.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, Sam could not deal if Dean died.
Oh, so you're saying that the relationship, it might be based in a little codependency?
I don't know. I didn't say that.
Key term here. Codependency.
But yeah, sure. We'll say that, I guess.
Throw it out there.
Yeah. So I think that Sam, was very worried. Couldn't have, another family member die.
I mean, yeah. To be fair,
at kind of not his expense, but he was there and could have.
Oh
helped.
God, then he'd be left with John. Jeez, Dean cannot die.
Yeah.
But throughout Faith, it's interesting that you can see Dean clearly doesn't hold himself in as high esteem as Sam does. One could even say Dean has almost no self-esteem.
Well, yeah, we see after he's healed by the faith healer, he keeps asking, why was I healed? And, the guy's just like, because God picked you, son. God picked you.
I do think it's interesting that Dean's lack of faith is in opposition to Sam's faith that he seems to have.
You know what I just realized?
What'd you just realize?
Dean has survivor's guilt about literally everything.
Yeah.
About Mary. Because if
Probably.
Dean would have died, that's the thing, though. I think, because, see, John wouldn't have been, I'm thinking John probably would have been messed up, but he would have had the love of his life.
I don't know if Dean feels guilty about that, but literally everything else, yeah, I agree.
I think about everything because I think he's thinking of all the things that I've hunted. I should probably be dead, or we should probably be doing this.
His live fast, die young philosophy that he seems to hold.
And then even after the faith healer, he's like, why did you heal me and not, all these other people, that lovely girl.
Layla. And when the Reaper comes, while they're trying to heal Layla and the Reaper comes, you can see Dean, he gives up. He's just like, you know what? I think she deserves to live more than I do. If this is the end of this is the end of the road, this is the end of the road, and he doesn't think his life is really worth anything unless he's saving or protecting somebody.
Well, because that's kind of what the hunter life is, though, is that you go down swinging and hunting a monster. So if he died saving someone and Sam takes that monster down, he died with a purpose.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't agree. I totally agree. Exactly.
But going back to Dean surviving from that too, I thought it was really nice that little thing that I think they sprinkled in when the faith healer, Dean asks, why me? And the guy goes, because your life's not finished, son.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, woo! You're not finished.
His life is not finished.
Again, they cheat death a lot. Their lives are not finished.
Their lives are not normal either.
No.
Sam is right. They are kind of freaks in that respect. But you know who I think believes Dean has value intrinsically?
Who?
That'd be Cassie in Route 666. I really liked that look into Dean's past romantically, because his persona is, of course, just the hook up at bars and no long-term thing, the live fast die young philosophy I just mentioned.
I did really like that, actually, because I think Sam was us as the audience.
Oh.
You know what? I think Sam is kind of always us as the audience in relation to what we see Dean as.
Sam was thriving.
Because he was like, oh, yeah, she didn't mean anything. And then Dean was like, yeah, but I might have told her about the life. And Sam's just kind of like, wait, you told her?
Sam was actually really pissed off that he's like, I kept my mouth shut for 1.5 years when I was dating Jess, and you just this girl you talked to for 3 weeks, you happen to mention it. You
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
her
yeah.
the secret, the family secret. You tell her this.
Yeah, but then you find out that it was a little bit more.
But then they
than
meet,
that.
and Sam's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what was going on here. And then he teases Dean the entire episode, and it's fantastic. I love it because they're teasing Dean about he gets to be soft, and there's someone that he cares about and he likes, and it's very nice. We always like when Dean's not just rah, rah, big grumpy hunter boy, and you just, because he wants to care about people. He wants people to care about him. That's all he wants in his life.
He wants someone to go, they're there.
They're there. They're there.
They're there.
Poor thing. And they were so cute.
Yeah, I did really like that. And then, like I said, you find out that, like, Sam mentions, like, oh, yeah, why'd you break up with her? And then Dean's just kind of, like, all sad and...
Because he didn't.
Because he didn't.
Nope, she broke up with him.
And again, that just goes to show a nice character that Dean... Well, that is up for debate if Dean would have stayed there and quit the hunting life. It was early relationship. But, he might have thought it. Like, this could be a real thing. I told her kind of thing.
If he didn't feel such obligation towards John and finding the thing that killed his mother, I think he would have been like, you know what, Dad, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
At least he would have tried to settle down a little bit with Cassie.
I think he would have
see where it went.
Yeah, I think he would have made it a very like committed relationship. Like I think it was. He would have been committed to her, like, oh, okay, let's move in, let's try this, like, I'll get a job here, like, let's make this work and see if it does. And even the end, like, Cassie's like, I don't think it's gonna work. And that might have just been happening. But, I think Dean could have, I say, settled down in quotes to commit to this relationship and not commit to hunting, because that's what he's doing now.
Because she says, I'm a realist. You're still really committed to this thing you're doing with your family. It's not going to work out like that. But if Dean had been like, that's it, quitting the life, I think they could have gone kind of far.
Quitting in the quotes of, maybe he helped some things here and there. Or
Local
whatever.
Cases.
Yeah, but not like
on the road.
Scouring the country for a demon.
Every day waking up looking at internet articles. Yeah, I think they could have had a real go at it if he hadn't. They still clearly had feelings for each other.
I know. They were adorable.
They were so freaking cute. Sam literally was us. I was
Sam
loving
was
it.
just like,
I was living for it. We're all just like,
yeah, I'm here.
Hello. And then Dean's little finger he just sticks. He's like, hold on, Sammy, hold on. So funny.
Yeah, and then Sam's literally like, so where were you last night?
Didn't come back to the motel.
Come home?
Okay. Yeah, the only good part of that episode.
But the last thing about this that I think is the very last scene that we see when, Dean and Cassie are saying goodbye, is that I think Sam kind of respects Dean a little bit more. Because, again, he's seeing this side of his brother that I don't think he knew. So he's seeing, like, oh, this is the girl, again, that he could have potentially left the life for. Like, this is his Jess. In the sense that he sees it now.
His first love.
Yeah.
Like Sam, like Jess was Sam's.
So I think, Dean probably would have been very upset if he found out that just Cassie died. Like,
yeah, he would have.
Especially because, again, Dean would have blamed himself.
Naturally. Always does. One of the foundations of his psyche.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think Sam is just slowly respecting Dean more because he's seeing a side of Dean without John. And that is different.
That's what it is. I'm like, he knows his brother,
but he doesn't.
He knows, but he doesn't know his brother without John. And I think that is the key.
The key. It's the key to everything.
It's the key distinction.
Yeah.
Of there's Dean with John, there's Dean around other people, and then there's a Dean without John with Sam.
Yeah.
And that's a different person. Dean can sort of open up a little bit. He won't volunteer information, but he'll be more open. He'll be softer, I think, with Sam. He'll still put on the big brother and the joking and the,
So it's almost
cracks.
to say that, with John, Dean is his commanding officer. So he's not going to show any fear or whatnot. But Sam, is his brother in arms. Usually in the sense of that's the person, you're dying for. That's the person It's
the person you would die for.
It's the person you're fighting with, like.
Right.
It's the person you don't really share. It's the person you would
It's the person you share trauma with.
Yeah, and secrets and all that stuff. But you're not going to tell your commanding officer all that. That's just not going to happen. Because guess what? They don't care. So...
Did the job get done?
Yeah.
Great, that's all that John
care
cares about. You're both alive? Great. Next case.
Yeah, so...
Speaking of being brothers in arms, I also think that Sam relies on Dean to protect him in a way. Not exactly relies on him, but he knows that no matter what happens, Dean will be there for him. They're both going to be there for each other. Sam was there for him with Faith. He found a way to heal Dean. Dean's always protected Sam when he was little. I mean, he took him out of the nursery, which Sam learns he didn't know before in their previous set of episodes. He learns that Sam was the one, that Dean was the one who brought him out of the house, who saved him, and that Dean's always going to be there for him. But in return, Sam will always be there for Dean. And so it's a strengthening of it's the strength of their bond that we see, I think, just show itself in these episodes.
Yeah, and it's growing more, too.
Every day.
Mm-hmm. Every monster.
Every hunt, every monster they take down. Every existential crisis these boys have to go through.
Yikes, I know.
Oh, they don't even know, these boys.
Literally.
We're watching these, we're like, oh, a pagan god? How quaint. Oh, a demon? Wow.
Call John Winchester.
Mm-hmm. That was weird. I was shook when they're like, this is a demon, we gotta call Dad. And I'm like, oh no, what? One demon? And you gotta call Daddy? Like, boys.
So we talked about how Nightmare was the most plot-related episode. It really brings different issues to the characters, because we do find Sam's having visions that he's has telekinesis now, and that kind of strains the relationship more, and is going to start strain the relationship more, because again,
yes,
Dean is worried for Sam, especially since they saw Max.
Dean is super worried about Sam. Again, he's playing it off, of course, to try not worry Sam so much, because Dean's like, I'll do all the worrying for you. Don't worry about it. We'll, it'll be fine. I think it's interesting that we clearly show that these boys will always gravitate to each other. The relationship is very strong between these two. But pairing with the theme of, in these past couple episodes, real monsters can sometimes be people. Mm-hmm. And so it seems that these two themes are kind of finding themselves in Sam, whereas he has these powers that are very worrying to Dean and to Sam. And the fact that someone like Sam could do something so monstrous is kind of worrying.
Yeah, well, and I think even when Max dies, I think he feels really guilty, because not only could he not help him, but I think he sees himself, and I think he's worried, I don't think he's like, I'm never going to pull the trigger. So he's thinking, who is going to be pulling the trigger?
Right.
If, God forbid, something happens and I go down that path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something Sam is thinking about after Nightmare, because he's seen how that plays out, and it's not good.
Yeah, and I mean, he has everything brewing for a bad path for him. He has bad trauma, a lot of bad trauma, and, just throwing a little bit more stuff. And
yeah. Every day he gets more trauma. The more he gets deeper into the hunter life, the more trauma he accumulates, of course. And he's not Dean, who tries to, drink the trauma away.
So I think he kind of is like, yeah, I could potentially go to the dark side that John and Dean would label as the dark side, because they see in black and white and he sees in gray.
Yep. And so that would be the problem of, is one day my family going to come after me the way that Max came after his family? And that's a serious threat. That's a serious possibility to Sam, because these abilities, they don't really know where they came from. They don't really fully understand how they're connected. They understand that Max, his mother also died on the ceiling, burned. So somehow this demon has done something to them or connected them in some way and given them these abilities, and it's troubling, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think Sam even knows that, because I think John even said he can't tell you what's going on, so I think he's thinking now, crap, what does he know?
Right. Does John know that Sam has abilities?
He must at this point. Or he must know that there was others like him.
Right.
Because if he's doing some digging about people in a fire, because that's half the battle. Because the only reason why John knows Mary died on the ceiling is because he saw that. The only reason why they know Max's mom is because the dad said they saw her. But, no one believed that because they thought he was just drunk.
Right. Thought he was crazy.
So how many women died in a nursery or just died from a fire in a house and no one thought anything about it? And John's kind of going through these papers like, oh my God.
Right.
Is this true now? Like, is there something bigger?
And that'd be hard to shift through, too, because you'd have to figure out what news reporter is going to report what room they were in when the house burned down. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The house burned down.
The house burned down, yeah.
They
or
died.
like the entire family died. Yeah. You never know. Like, so Sam, knowing that John may know that something's not right, that this demon, I guess, has a big picture, that this demon has a grand plan, and Sam and others are a part of it.
Somehow a part of this demon's plan.
Yeah.
Which we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Meg apparently does.
Yeah.
But we do not.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. We are your Hunter hosts, Graham and
Sierra.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HunterHost. If you're listening to us on Anchor, check us out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which we also are posting every episode. We're driving off. We will see you next time in our rearview mirror.